decided, F Soup's hat from the first season of The Boys, unfortunately.
Well, welcome everyone who is maybe hopefully going to trickle in. If not, you're going to be watching this a little bit later on our YouTube channel. But we are here to talk about Gen V. And as far as some of us are concerned, it's too early. But hey, that's the way it goes. So this is from the American Science Fiction Fantasy Media Track at DragonCon. I'm Kelly Harkins, the director of the track. And what we're going to do, we have one or two people missing, but they will show up when they show up. And we'll kind of go from there. Bruce, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Bruce Sheffer. I'm a podcaster for Gaming on the Frontier, which is a tabletop RPG gaming podcast. I'm also alumni of the American Sci-Fi Media Track with Kelly Harkins, known for many years, and an overall long-term fan of superheroes and science fiction and all that culture.
Annika?
Hi, my name is Hanako Ricks, and I am the creator and host of the Fandom Hybrid podcast. We cover a lot of pop culture media, TV shows, films, and also conventions. I am also a longtime panelist for the American Science Fiction Fantasy Media Track at DragonCon. I've been doing that now for, I think, about 6 years, and glad to be here.
Damien.
Hey, I'm Damien, and I'm the jack of all trades. I have participated for almost probably about 20 or so more years now for Brit Track, American Sci-Fi, Horror Track, Urban Fantasy Track, and X Track. I most recently took on a role last year subbing in as the assistant track director for the X Track at DragonCon this year. And you can typically find me. I have a couple of different podcasts with my fellow nerds and cosplayers over at needcoffee.com, the Week in Justice podcast, as well as the Stuff We Like, Stuff We Hate podcast, run by a couple of cosplayers who put together a lot of the fan photo shoots for all the superheroes at DragonCon.
Awesome. I didn't even know you did cosplay, David.
Oh, boy, that's a tough one.
We'll have to talk about that sometime. But today we are here to talk about Gen V, the Boys spinoff that happened on Amazon Prime recently. We just finished the last episode last week. So we figured to give enough time because there will be spoilers, and I will note that in the kind of the notes below. So if you are like, wait, you will not have to worry about that. So you will see that is coming. So no spoil. We'll make that clear right up front that you don't have to worry about spoiling anybody. That is one of the reasons why I waited at least a week before doing this. So we will kind of go from there. Let's all start with something simple. What did you think in general? We're going to go into arcs and characters and all that. But what did you think in general of the first season of Gen V? Bruce, we'll start again with you.
Okay. Well, first of all, is that it's presented as a four-color, superhero type media, and if you're familiar with The Boys at all, there's actually a horror show. So with some amount of deduction, Scooby-Dooing going on, but mostly it's a train wreck from beginning to end in regards to the terrible things that happen to these characters.
Okay, Hanako.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think when I went in, I wasn't expecting much because sometimes spinoffs don't come with the same energy as the original show. So I was kind of worried about that whole different set of cast of characters. And I don't know what I was thinking. It was definitely a boys' property. You could see it from beginning to end. Like Bruce said, it was a train wreck the whole time. And it was funny. It was horrifying. They did have some emotional moments in there, but it was The Boys Junior, and then we had cameos and that were just mind-blowing to me. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I really did.
Damien. And you're muted, Damien.
Damien, you're muted.
Yep, I am, and I'm unmuted. So I really, really enjoyed it, right? I actually enjoyed chunks of this season better than I have The Boys. If you can believe that. I know most people are like, huh? There are some things I always have problems with these properties, regardless of what it is, whatever fandom it is, right? So there are a few things I'm like, that we didn't need it. However, overall, I loved it. I love the development. I love some of the twists that happened in it. So all in all, I give them an A for this season.
I usually I would kind of sit back, but since there are only the four of us, I'll chime in here. I agree, and I think in some ways we got a little more. This is going to sound weird. There's a little more positivity. Well, that's why I'm like kind of strange weird. But Marie being who she is, I think it was a little more of a positive character, even with all she's dealing with, than some of the people we see in The Boys. Man, those sound effects. I swear, those guys are masters of sound effects.
The squelching was just like I literally sat there and cringed at certain points. It was just, it's too much.
Yeah, they really have that down. So yes, I think they did a good job, especially when you consider what Gen V is in The Boys universe. It's just a character arc. It's just a story arc in the books, and they're really kind of taken that, and I think they did a great job with kind of adapting that, making it more work for the mass public too, in that sense. So, all right, we'll kind of go to the next kind of easy question. Who is your favorite character, Hanako?
I think, I don't know, you may have to come back to me. I have to think about it. Because one of the things about this show is, especially if you have experience with The Boys, you know that the superheroes are not actually superheroes. And they kind of stick with that here in the show. But at the same time, you kind of see the behind the scenes of what's going on, especially when you get to the woods. And it's kind of like, okay, well, I can understand why they are such assholes, because they have to be, because of what they've gone through. And it's like watching our main group of characters kind of go through the things that they go through. I don't know. I think Marie is one of my favorites, and I will admit she kind of irritated me at the beginning. I was not a fan of her ignorance and her naivete, even though I know that has to do with the way she was brought up. But it was just very strange seeing someone in a 2023 world not know anything about cell phones, not know anything about social media. It was just very weird to me. And I say this as a Gen Xer. So I think her and, oh my God, his name just escaped me, Polarity's son.
Yes,
right. Thank you. I think he was probably my overall favorite, just because he had his flaws, but it's like towards the end, he was really trying to be what he was brought up to be, what he was raised to be. And then for him to see those flaws in his father and then what's going on, I think I liked his arc a little bit better than Marie's, but I think they're both kind of right there for me.
Okay. Damien?
Invisible guy. Right? Invisible guy. Right? And to echo what Hanako said, look, absolutely, those would have been my two favorite characters, right? And I don't have the issues with Marie's development in the beginning with technology and everything, because you have to consider she was raised in that bubble environment, right? Away from everything. So there were limits on what those, kids growing up in that Gen V foster system, so to speak, in an institution, that they had access to, or that they could participate in. Think about, she didn't have a phone. Well, why would she have a phone? She came out of a system where she really didn't go anywhere or really do much of anything in the outside world.
She had no one to call.
Right. So it tracks, right? There's no connection there in the same way that we have with free movement. Chance stuck out to me just for the nature of, and he plays Andre, his acting, right? He was the first one where I looked and went, this guy's really good, right? He was super, super convincing. But overall, invisible guy, right? Knowing that he's what's his name?
Translucent.
Translucent
Sun,
sun,
yeah.
right? It tracks. It tracks. You see this dude walking through, like, why is he with a llama? Never mind. I'm not even gonna. Every time you see him, he's doing something out of the way. Even though you don't see him, you just see the hat and the glasses, right? And it's perfectly timed how they throw him in there because we're in the middle of something serious. Weird invisible dude with some kind of animal or person animal. Okay, never mind. Gotta keep moving, right? And that was a theme throughout the whole thing.
Okay. Oh, geez. Trying to say who mine was. There, none of these characters are purely good and purely evil because that's the boys. You know, that's just the nature of it. I guess I kind of like Jordan because of the duality and trying to figure out where you are and who you are. And that journey I really enjoyed. And so I thought that was really interesting the way they handled that in a very visceral manner, as opposed to, you know, kind of like, oh, this is happening, you know, kind of more in the politically correct way we deal with it, but having to literally deal with kind of a binary mentality. I just really enjoyed how they handled that and how they performed it. And honestly, the two actors doing the role, they did a great job kind of combining the little mannerisms and things like that. I thought they really got part of those things down, which made that what would seemingly be a ridiculous kind of concept, but it made sense the way they were doing it and the way they were playing it. So I really enjoyed that. So, Bruce?
That's what I was going to say. London Thor, who plays Jordan, the female version, and Derek Liu, who plays the male version. They never missed a beat with their mannerisms and how they communicated, despite which body they were presenting on screen, right? You could always feel that was the exact same person having that conversation.
Yeah, definitely. So, Bruce.
Okay, so they're all, one of the main themes of this series is duality, because they are they're trying to embrace who they are, but at the same time they're revolted by who they are, if not for the powers that they have or how they manifest, but by the way people around them react to them and their constant attempts to try to find some middle ground where they can actually feel good about themselves. And to me, the best character in the series is Cricket, who completely identifies that. She's got a power that she has to do things that are, that are considered bad. Basically, she has to be bulimic, or she has to overeat in order to change her size. And, and they very early on, they show her as being, vulnerable and, and hidden, because she's trying to play the game as she's been told that's how you play it, even though we now at the end of it, it's all a lie. But then she also manages to be the only person who really stands up for the other characters, even when she sees their flaws. I mean, Sam is broken, and she takes her brokenness and connects with his brokenness. And at the end of the series, she's still a positive character. She's still basically a hero, while the rest of them trying, still not quite gotten there yet. So in many regards, her arc is more successful than any of the others, and I like her very much for that.
Was an interesting play because, of course, so much of the boys and Gen V is parodying classic superhero culture. So you have a kind of, obviously, Cricket Emma is that Ant-Man, Giant Man kind of pastiche, and how it can be ridiculous but then overpowered all at the same time. So, but cool, awesome. So in that sense, since you brought up the whole kind of Emma's arc and bringing in Sam, I wanted to kind of talk about the character arcs, because there were so many different things, and I think duality is a great kind of theme for this, for the show in general, because the boys tends to be more about power. This seemed to be more about that and kind of bringing that aspect in, because of course it's that universe, but in that sense of duality, what path do I choose? The whole, superheroes are better than the, regulars, and, kind of playing on those.
They're certainly more durable.
Some of them. But in that sense, I want to kind of talk about the favorite character arc that you had and why it was your favorite. So, Damien, why don't you start this time?
That one is a tough one. As much as I love Marie and Polarity, um, I didn't have a favorite character arc overall. I thought they covered everyone quite adequately, and so like even the things with Cricket, right? There's some things there I'm like, huh, that kind of tracks with what we know about all of this. And to go back to Bruce's point, where they talk about and Kelly said this being a pastiche of classic superheroes. If you've read the comic, which they deviate a lot from at this point,
Yeah,
and that's not a big deal, but it still manages to track in the exact same vein as the original comic, where you got these powers, you're also not that quite great of a person, or you've been through some things, so you make some very questionable choices with your powers, right? And sure, you save 1 million people, but so honestly, I'm not sure on the show, other than what I will say is, spoiler alert, the ending. If we're gonna question any character arc, it's what they threw in at the ending with Homelander and how that twist comes up, and it tracks.
Very true. Very true. Kind of bringing it in, but keeping it separate. I'm going to wait till last. So, Bruce.
Okay, well, I really like Kate's arc because, frankly, it was the most complex. And I've always been a big believer that conflict is good, and there's a ton of conflict with Kate. Because at the beginning, she's presented as being the cool girl who's like in the best clique and has the boyfriend and all this stuff like that. And you think, and she's cruel, and at the same time, she's collected, okay? And then by the end of the arc, you realize that she is even more of a mess than pretty much anybody but Sam, because she's because she's a pusher, she's a mental dominant, so therefore you think that she'd be able to just control everything around her, which she does, but then you find out she's completely being controlled by Shetty, and and she's living just as much of a lie as anyone else. And she overdrives her powers. She almost dies. She kills basically other people. And sometimes I'm like, how can they allow her to continue to do the things that she does when, she's hurting people so much? But Shetty basically covers for everybody that she wants to use as a tool. So I really like Kate. I hate the character. We're all sitting around saying Kate has to die. No one can trust anything that they experience, remember, or what motivates them, as long as Kate's around, because she can change it and hide that she changed it. So my wife and I are all saying, she has to die. She has to go. But that's probably not going to happen because conflict is good.
Aniko?
Piggybacking off of what Bruce said, it's funny because if you really think about it, most of the soups in this universe, they all have pretty much given you a reason to say, that person needs to die, because they're all horrible. I think I don't really have a favorite character arc with this, but what I do like is that with the boys, you meet the 7 and you meet the superheroes, and it starts to kind of go backwards as far as you thinking them being quote unquote heroes and good at the beginning. And then you kind of see that they're not as you get more into their character arc. I think the thing that I like about Gen V is that these characters here, I won't say they necessarily start with a clean slate, because they all have trauma when they're introduced, as far as how they got to God you and what they're having to go through in order to try to beat everybody else to be on top or to get invited to the 7. But I like the way that we explore more of their humanity, that whole that whole shift and that whole struggle as far as I want to be a superhero, but what does that mean? Because they are the ones that's seeing that the adults around them, the superheroes around them, the quote unquote good people are not quite that good. So they're trying to make that decision. Okay, I want to be a superhero, but does that mean I have to compromise my morals? Does that mean, as the case with Andre and Polarity, this is a guy who has looked up to his father, who is also a soup all of his life. And then when he tells his dad about the woods, instead of his dad being horrified, his dad is like, you shut up, you don't say anything, you let this go. And to know that your dad is complicit in that, it brings that kind of conflict with him. Like, is this the person that I want to be? So I like seeing that humanity struggle with these suits. Like, they have all of this power and then they have to decide what it is they're going to do with it. And the adults, as with the boys, they're not providing the best examples. So I like seeing that struggle with these characters, because other than that, you know, they don't know what to do. All of these other, excuse me, all of these other younger people, they've grown up knowing that they were superheroes, or that they were superpowered, and that, their goal is to be part of the seven or to have the sponsors. Marie, on the other hand, like you said, Damon, she has not grown up with this. So for her having to learn all of this and then still try to figure out what she wants to be, and hey, yes, I'm this hero, and then, oh, you have to lie about being a hero, you have to lie about this, you have to lie about that. It presents a very interesting conundrum for them all. Like, what does being a superhero mean? So I like seeing that as far as their arcs, just to see how differently they each approach that question in their lives and what they decide to do.
Yeah, I think you bring up some great, you all brought up some great points about it. And I think that really tells into the whole concept of, in a lot of ways, like we've said before, about this being almost like a satire of, it's really more a satire in that sense, of superheroes than a parody. But, because they've said, Godolkin itself is kind of spoofing Xavier School, and we definitely see a lot of, with Kate, I got a very almost kind of Buffy vibe to it. And like, you're the, you are the top girl on campus, and you see that kind of superficialness from that whole aspect of it. And then yet, as the layers get peeled back, even, Golden Boy is not really that golden. It's all marketing, it's all manufacturing, which of course we have known from the beginning with the boys. But they're all at the cusp where a lot more of the boys, except for like Starlight, is already has made those commitments to those paths. So I think that in that sense, you bring up a lot of great points. I definitely got, much as I'm kind of with Bruce, Kate was kind of my most interesting one, partially because of that buffiness, partially of that kind of trope that they played with her. And then you see just how broken she is, even more broken than we could possibly have imagined in that sense. And I very much got kind of, in that sense, what Bruce is saying about she needs to die, a Kilgrave kind of vibe from her. But in a different kind of way than he uses that ability. So, because they are pretty close to each other, although his was just kind of presence, where hers was the touch, but still has a lot of that same impact. So seeing that journey with it, of course, they made such an emotional weight to, like, Shetty holding her hands and things like that. Like, I'm trusting you to do this. And the way that was, those sequences were always shot, it gave that extra layering to that emotion, just the touch and things like that. So, which kind of made her, I don't know, affair, her relationship with Andre, and, as opposed to the Golden Boy thing that they said, no, big man on campus, top girl, you guys need to be together. That was definitely manipulation. So it's like all those things were kind of a whole puzzle to me, the way they were playing out, but made sense totally in that teenage and manipulated by a Vought relationship, Vought and Shetty, in that combination. So there's just so many moving parts to all that. So I would probably say that one. In that sense, they bring up a couple of other things, like they bring up the whole, the doctor brings up compassionate control. So I kind of wanted to see your thoughts on that whole Shetty subtext where, and what you thought of that as a plot and how they tied that into The Boys, of course. So, Bruce, do you want to start that?
I'd rather not. I'm not quite sure I understand your question.
The whole like virus plot line that Shetty was doing and how she seemed one way, and of course she has a lot of influences on her in that aspect.
Oh, well, obviously, she, I mean, she's presented as acting separate from Vought. This is like her own idea. She's doing this in the woods, and when she's done with it, either she's going to have something that will catapult her, to the top echelon of Vought, or she literally can get rid of all the superheroes in the world. And that's first of all, that's a terrible amount of power to give anybody, and then, we don't really understand why Shetty is, at least not in this series, why she hates superheroes so much that she's willing to kill any and all superheroes in order to do so, to control them.
Answer that.
So they did answer that, right? If I may. They answered that in detail. If you go back to one of the early episodes of the first season of The Boys, there is a scene where where you find out Homelander's a piece of crap. And he destroys that whole plane with all of those people in it instead of saving them.
That's right. That's right. I'm sorry.
When they go through this, there's an episode toward the end, either, what is it, 6 or I think it's 7.
I think it's 6, maybe.
Yeah, either 6 or 7. When they are investigating Shetty on why she's doing what she's doing, you find out her husband and her child were both on that plane. And she found out that Homelander killed everyone on there, right?
Right.
Which they didn't have to die. He could have saved the plane. So when you look at, you're saying, hey, why, it's dangerous for someone to have that much power. She is a non-powered person who can see behind the scenes of all of these super-powered people who are supposed to be projected as these bastions of good and saving people in X, Y, and Z. And you find out, no, y'all are pieces of crap, and y'all are murdering people and harming people. And there needs to be a way to stop you and control you. And one of the things in the show, both of them, is trauma, right? And we talk about this a lot over on the Urban Fantasy track. A lot of the characters we encountered have some major, major trauma, and The Boys has it in spades. And so when you look at why, right? Yes, I'm on the inside of Vought, and now I can see everything. And I found out your number one superhero murdered my family. That's a heck of a lot of trauma to carry around. And yes, there's some rage time to that. And I want revenge. And I keep watching you do worse and worse and worse. And I'm going to find a way to stop you because no one else will. I need a bargaining chip.
Mm-hmm. Hanako?
Yeah, that whole compassionate control arc is very interesting to me because it's one of the things where, especially when you're dealing with the boys specifically, it brings it to the question morals, it brings it to the question ethics, because on the one hand, when you see these stories from the human point of view, you can kind of sort of see where they feel like this needs to be controlled because, again, who should have that much power? And these soups, it's not like exactly what powers you're going to have when they develop. These soups can have all kinds of powers.
Or how they show up.
Right. And it's scary. I mean, just look at the way that Marie found out about her powers. It was something that was seemingly a rite of passage as far as being a young woman, getting your first period. And then to sit here and have that trauma because she clearly looked like she wasn't sure what that was. So maybe her parents hadn't had that talk with her yet. Maybe she was a little bit younger. And to have that, and then for it to just kind of explode into what, no pun intended, but explode into what it did. it's like you kind of understand from the human point of view. Okay, yes, these superheroes or these supes should not have this much power. We've got to control it so that they don't hurt everyone. But on the flip side, are these supes exhibiting these dangerous behaviors, these dangerous violent tendencies because of the way that they are treated by the humans, by the regular non powered humans? And it's one of those things that you see it over and over in like X-Men, especially. I mean, you think about Magneto's origin story. His power started from a place of trauma, or at least that's when he discovered his powers, from a place of trauma. And I'm speaking solely from visual media, not comics. But you see that come through again. Like, would Magneto have become the person that he was if he hadn't have gone to the concentration camps, if they hadn't have killed his parents, if he hadn't been tortured, that sort of thing? You see it very much with the boys, and it makes you wonder, like, which came first, the chicken or the egg, and how do you solve that dilemma? And there really isn't a good answer for that, because you see the reasoning from both sides. You can empathize with both sides, but it's still a very big moral question, and even more so when you think about the real world implications of something like that, you know, because there are people who think that other communities, other whatever, should be controlled. And it's just it's one of those things where it's just like, it's a horrible concept. But at least within the scope of the show, you can kind of say, well, they did take Sam and isolate him from his brother, and they tortured him, and they did all kinds of things. So yeah, I can see why he turned into a raging psycho at the end. Yeah, I understand. But that's a that's a very touchy subject.
The one thing I would say on Chetty's story that I would have liked a little more clarity on is, and we talked before we started about timelines and things like this, but in the timeline of her character, I get the impression, at least this is the way I've kind of rationalized it in my head, is that she was working with Vought. She was doing all those things, right, and invested in it for a long time. And then the situation with the plane and her kid and her husband with Homelander happened, and that basically radicalized her. So in that sense, that timeline was a little distorted. It might have been something that they edited out for time, or they just were like, oh, they'll figure it out, which they often do sometimes, things like that with shorthand. I would have liked a little more clarity on that, but I thought kind of what you were saying, Hanako, and how when we bring in Grace Malloy as one of the kind of cameos that we had from the boys, and how she's like, no, you have taken this too far. In that sense, you can't wipe out. It's the painting of everybody with that brush. It's like all soup, and she's like, no, this is war kind of mentality, which we're seeing a lot of reflections on our world, unfortunately. And I think that plays into some of that, because they do tend to be, the boys especially, and Gen V even brings up real world politics into it, and not always in even a metaphor sense. If you hear some of the behind the scenes comments,
how they film certain things, right? The news broadcaster that they continue to bring in, and how things are portrayed, the anger and the outspokenness of the audience. And obviously, as a person who has done supernatural for urban fantasy the entire time for Dragon Con, I'm overly familiar with Eric Kripke and his work. And so, of course, we have Alexander Calvert playing Rufus, who was Jack in Supernatural, who wasn't that great in there either. And apparently he's just not going to be a good guy as Rufus. But if you notice, Rufus constantly had the dyed white hair and the red hat, right? And what's on the red hat, right? So, it's definitely a mirror of what we're seeing out in society right now, right? When I sit there and watch it, I think back to leading up to the previous election. Not this last one, but the one before that, where you saw people at rallies yelling and punching people and hitting people and going, we're not doing this anymore, and blah, 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 blah. And, oh, we are better than X, Y, and Z, and we deserve blah, blah, blah. What about us? And it's like, huh, this all tracks and makes plenty of sense.
Mm-hmm. But Kelly, piggybacking off of what you were saying, one of the things I think was interesting was in regards to Shetty and her just kind of her laser focus on getting rid of all the soups. I find it interesting that, you know, for the boys, the flagship show, we have Billy Butcher, who also has the same focus, also because, you know, he believes that, once again, same person, Homelander killed his wife, and he's on this mission to kill Soups. I think the interesting thing about it is if you look at it from however different perspectives you have, you can go male versus female and how they approach it. Like Billy Butcher is basically, he's like, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to destroy them one by one. And he takes on this mission of getting rid of Soups. And we see that he's fairly successful at it by the time we meet him. I think the fact that Shetty played the long game and she saw the wider picture as opposed to acting off her emotion and just doing things one by one. She said, no, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to build up my career and I'm going to get to a point where I can be in a position of power and control within this community, have them love me, have them trust me, and then take them out from the inside. So I have to go back. I think she's my favorite character arc because you really don't see it in the beginning. Like when you see her interacting with the students and interacting with Marie, I always felt like there was something shady about her. But I thought it was because she was under Vaught's thumb and she was working from a Vaught angle. When we saw the reveal about the plane, I was just like, I sat there and I put two and two together and I was like, oh, this is so not what I expected, because it wasn't. To imagine the kind of control that you have to be in a full facility full of the type of people that killed your family, even though, yes, you know, it goes with that thing. You can't blame an entire group of people for one person's actions, but she does to like the 1000th degree. And to watch the game that she plays in doing all of this and then making her reveal, I thought that was so interesting because it's like she's doing the same thing Billy does. And, you know, The Boys is actually one of the shows that we cover on our podcast. And we always berating Billy about his actions and what he's doing. And come on, guy, you got to make sense. And she's doing it, but on a more sophisticated level, I guess you can say. So that is interesting to watch those two parallels and to see you can do it. You can get the same result. You go one way, you go the other way. She really had a way that she could have literally wiped all of the Soups off the planet.
Well, I think that's the difference between her and the difference between Butcher, Grace, and her. Butcher and Grace don't necessarily want to kill all the Soups. Their biggest, think about it.
Now, but when we first met Billy,
absolutely. In
Butcher, he wanted all Soups dead.
Butcher also has Soups as friends and people that are close to him, right?
Now, yeah.
Right? And that all of that developed, right? And they've been there, right? Grace, same situation. They know not all of them, but they also know Vought is the main villain, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that is the difference where, quite frankly, Shetty is using a eugenics route, right? Like when you start looking at that's straight up eugenics. Mm-hmm. I want to kill every last single one. That's ethnic cleansing at its finest.
But isn't Vought doing the same thing with Compound V?
Not necessarily. No. Think about it. That's all. I want to control the world and have money. I don't want to kill everybody off.
Yeah, but eugenics isn't just wiping people out. It's also manipulation of, the gene pool essentially.
Mhm.
So, but
Yeah.
Bruce, do you want to kind of add in anything here?
Yeah, I was really surprised as somebody whose primary goal in life is to be an educator when this happened to her. Did not say, we really need to enforce a program of ethics with these children. But there's like no indication that there's anything like that in the curriculum.
No, they did say there was an ethics class.
Yeah, but there's no evidence of an ethics class.
Yeah, we never heard what they taught.
I mean, the people who are in the influencer track, all they care about is the numbers. They don't care how they get them. They're perfectly happy, and the people who end up graduating at the highest levels are going to go and move into bought entertainment and all the rest of that stuff. So it's all about producing more money for VOD. It's not about anything having to do with superhero ethics, which I'm not surprised from the VOD side, because VOD doesn't care about superheroes. They're just a means to an end. Okay, but Shetty, I would think would have been, you'd think there would be some kind of guidelines. You'd think the RA would have enforced some kind of guidelines, but he doesn't. He just stands around and watches the show.
Well, especially when you think about, for him to appear like he does, what is he standing around?
But I think that kind of...
He's standing around naked, I know.
Yeah, I was going to say, but I think that kind of tracks as well, too, because if you think about it, if Shetty's full focus is about getting rid of the soups, she's not going to care about the ethics. She's going to let them kind of sort of do what they want to do, because that, I feel like, would lend more credence to what she wants to do. Oh, they can't be controlled anyway. Yes, we teach an ethics class and it doesn't sink in. They don't care about the ethics. And I think it probably feeds into her narrative, because if you focus on these ethics and you actually have people or soups that are focusing on that, let's say like Andre very clearly has a sense of wrong and right. And when he's faced with that, that mirror in his father, and he sees that his father is totally on the side of wrong, he denounces his father, like literally says F you on live TV to his father, and he takes that stand. If you have more people like Andre in that situation with Shetty, it may cause her to lose focus on her goal. She may go that route and say, oh, well, you know what? Not all of these superpowered people are bad, and it will change possibly the way that she thinks. And she doesn't want that. So why would she worry about, changing them and making them better? It's not going to bring her husband and her children and her child back. So maybe for her, she's just like, okay, whatever.
She's
they
not
can
a one-trick pony.
They want to be.
Yeah, you're making her too stereotypical by doing that. I mean, she is an educator. She should care about these children.
Should care, but we never know, right? Even in the human condition, you don't know how trauma manifests itself in people and controls their thinking and their responses to things, right?
And
she
very well been the most good educator before that. So
right, and this, quite frankly, no. I watched the world's most prominent, famous superhero kill my family, right? There may be some things there preventing her from giving a crap about ethics at all, because she's willing to go that far to wipe them all out, right? It's, oh, I just tortured somebody and let them get sick and sicker, right? Oh, now make it more potent. Great. Now, can you make it airborne, right? There's a progressive step of, I don't give a blank, right? That goes on with her. So when you look at that, and
then also we're talking about the boys. The boys is all about stereotypes.
Or playing off of the stereotypes, yes. All right, so to go into something a little lighter, and since we have been talking about the boys in the broader sense, of all the kind of drop-in cameos and things like that, which ones did you feel made sense? Which ones did you enjoy? And kind of insights on that. So, Bruce, do you want to kind of chime in on that one?
Well, I think dropping Ashley in was, she was pure Ashley. I mean, she was damage control from beginning to end,
With
lying.
the full head of hair.
Yeah, because she wears a wig. Yeah, lying, to get anybody to do what she wants, and then of course reneging immediately thereafter. So yeah, I mean, I thought it was fun to see her, and and it was almost you just knew that if she showed up, Homelander couldn't be that far behind, and then he shows up. So that I thought that was a really good way of stopping at the end, even though I must say I didn't like the ending. I understand the ending.
Hanako?
Soldier Boy. And I say that, of course, I'm a Supernatural fan. I'm a longtime Supernatural fan, and I love Jensen Ackles. And having to watch in my mind him go from Dean to Soldier Boy in The Boys was strange enough, but his cameo in this show and just him being a manifestation of Kate's fantasies, the thing that she learned how to it was the weirdest, cringiest, craziest cameo that I've seen, and I was like, oh my god, I'm never going to be able to look at Jensen the same again. It's so weird, and it's so funny because I watch YouTube videos of like his question and answer panels when he does his conventions, and since that episode aired, he always gets a question about Skittles, and it's just I can't hear the word Skittles now without just it. Yeah, it was a strange cameo, but I loved it. But at the same time, I was like, why would you do this to me? Why would you do this to me? I loved it.
Damien?
Honestly, Jason Ritter, right? Jason Ritter being Jason Ritter, and knowing full well that he has been a part of another superhero show here in Atlanta, Raising Dion, for both seasons, right? For him to turn around and actually be on a show about superheroes going badly, playing himself, knowing the character he was just playing, actually, that was actually funnier for me to watch, going, oh, wow, now you're here? Great. This can't be good. But to Hanako's, I'm going to say this. While I enjoyed the use of Soldier Boy as her manifestation, I did not like the dialogue at all with certain parts, and that part in particular. And I know why, right? And if you go back through, it's Evan Goldberg. And if you know what Evan Goldberg has written, you've got things with him and Seth Rogen and Pineapple Express and all of those things that, he's previously worked on with like Preacher, Superbad, a bunch of stuff. This is the end with Seth Rogen, right? And the jokes that come with it. I understand we're watching a show that's aimed at adults, that is about superheroes. And I've read all of the Boys' comics. I know how horrible things can be, and I know how stuff can be in Preacher and all those other things with Garth Ennis. No questions about that. But you're also literally going into a deep dive about a kid, right? And their sexual experiences, which I felt like was wholly unnecessary, right? If you edit that whole part out, it doesn't change what he was for her and that manifestation, right? But that whole section of dialogue, I'm like, all right, that didn't need to be shown or said, right? It was wholly unnecessary. When you
think they went for the shock value in that.
Yeah, and like way over the top shock value, because you are now talking about a teenage girl going through these experiences and having a grown man in her head, spouting off all of this stuff. So for me, that was just like, man, you guys, this tracks with some other jacked up jokes I know have been written in your other material. And I'm like, why do you consistently choose to go there? But that's just me.
I can see your point. Any other thoughts? I have one kind of that's going to fit into the whole universe on the cameos or anything like that.
I'm sorry. Repeat that question. My screen froze a little bit.
In the fact that we had so many different cameos come in, and how it, it does really fit into that boys universe. They were very, very thoughtful about a lot of those things. So was there any other cameos you specifically wanted to touch on or refer about?
Well, it wasn't a cameo, but Professor Richard Brinkerhoff. I mean, Clancy Brown was just amazing in that role, and he just kept coming back as they kept flashbacks and things like that. That, you're always again conflicted. Is he doing what he thinks is best for Vought? Is he doing what he thinks is best for the Seven? Is he doing what's best for him? You never really got a sense, that you knew him. It was always a reflection of how the people that ran into him remembered it. So it's I found for the amazing amount of writing that they were able to make him so complex in such a short period of time.
Yeah, it really made me wonder whether or not he was a part of, whether he was knowingly a part of Shetty's plan as far as eliminating the Supes, because he was. He was so instrumental in keeping some of our main characters close to him, with Golden Boy and with Kate and with Jordan, just basically putting himself as this mentor, and having them trust him. And then to find out as the season progressed that he was actually kind of manipulating Golden Boy, and he manipulated Jordan into keeping his secrets by making her TA, and all of these things. And then when you see the flashbacks about them doing the procedure with Luke and Sam, I was like, so was he a part of this? And it really makes you wonder if he was also on that whole let's kill all the Supes mentality. But the other cameo, as far as Homelander coming in, Homelander having the nerve to ask, is this what you do? Are you okay with killing your own kind? Pot kettle. Really?
Homelander hates soup on soup violence. Absolutely hates it.
Even if
unless he's the one perpetuating it.
Right.
I'm not saying there's no irony there. I'm just saying though, but that's his point of view. Nobody's allowed to do it
unless he says so.
Unless he does it. Yeah.
Yeah. But it really kind of makes me wonder, worry for Kate, because with her mindset now about, they wanted to kill all of us. Well, let's I won't say she's at the let's kill all humans part yet, but her progression from passive aggressive to very, very aggressive in that respect, I think that's something that's going to catch Homelander's eye. And especially, when we see the last scene and you see that he basically has locked away, or they have locked away our four main people, and now they're lifting Kate and Sam up in the Vought media as the heroes, the new Guardians of Godolkin. I was like, that's not going to be good, because with Kate's power and Homelander's influence, it's about to go to shit.
Well, not even his influence, his protection, right? You have now been handpicked by Homelander, which means you're going to be virtually untouchable regardless what you end up doing, right? I will throw this one in, though. Victoria Newman.
I was about to
Victoria Newman, right? Playing the behind-the-scenes, almost covert ops part of it all. I really, really appreciated that. And I appreciated the fact that she took time to do some tutelage, right? In regards to, hey, you can do more with this. What? So try, right? And then all of a sudden, other things started getting unlocked from that point forward with Marie. So, and her now being in possession of the viral love, and she's the only person. And the fact that she was able to explode that dude's head again. I forgot she could do that.
How did you forget?
It just escaped my mind, but I knew he wasn't making it out of there. I just didn't know how she was going to kill him. And then I was like, oh yeah, that.
Right.
Never mind. Because he was like, I'm doing the right thing. I don't like this, blah, blah, blah.
Yep. And then the scary thing is you see Marie do the same thing with Kate's arm.
Well, she had no choice.
Yeah.
She could have exploded her head, but she went for an arm, a non-lethal blow for someone I kind of bonded with. But I'm pretty sure Kate is now on a arm for an arm thing.
Unless they find a hero that regrows things. So
They're actually
in first episode, the guy that was getting the car beat out of him.
So with this in mind, one of the things that with the cameos and kind of tying in the Newman story into this, we're really seeing they are really even more, honestly, in some ways than the MCU, building a very much boys universe. If you look at some of the transmedia stuff they're doing, I don't know if you've seen, there's the Godolkin U website where you can take a tour of the campus.
Oh.
They have this, we were talking about the newscaster, they have a whole series of news broadcasts, 7 on 7, where they're building this up. And these are all separate from the shows themselves.
Bot News Network. Yeah. That's one of the things we talk about. The marketing for this show is like
propaganda
charts.
It is propaganda, but it makes total sense for this show since marketing is so much a component in The Boys. But yeah, it is probably more spot on than any other marketing campaign for heroes anywhere.
Well, it's scary because of how much it parallels things that we see, right? It's like, wow, this is beat for beat for this network over here and this anchor person and these messages that you're seeing on TV and product, even the products that they pitch.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So with that kind of tying in with all the cameos we've seen with Newman coming in, I kind of wanted to touch on that whole universe thing and also bringing in the fact that I think the one character we really don't know their agenda is Newman. You know, we see her gathering power, moving up in the ranks, arranging to end up being the vice president. Not yet, but probably. But in that sense of it. So I wanted to kind of see how you saw her as a character, you saw the whole universe and how they're going to play in against each other. I know that's a really big topic, but try to keep it concise in that sense. But, kind of your perspective on that journey. If maybe you have an idea of what Victoria is doing, go for it. Damien, do you want to start?
Sure. I think Victoria's, using this just as a rise to power, right? I can compete with what? If I'm vice president, and I have powers, I have this final load, right? I can get things done, right? And I can get things done the way I want to get them done. Because there's got to be a competing dynamic with Vought, period. And you see that with Butcher and Grace and everything else, but they can't compete at that level, right? But when you take the route that Newman's going, and it's completely let me put myself in a position of power, which gives me access to more resources that I may not have through Vought and everything else, right? So that I can position myself to compete against that. I can campaign and push against Homelander publicly in the public eye by being who I am.
Who she pretends to be.
Well, right. Being who she pretends to be, but the other part is this. At any given time, let's say she gets elected or something happens and the president dies, she becomes president, right? Right? That's the end goal. And let's not pretend like she can't force the president to have a mild heart attack or stroke. That puts her in power, right? Untraceable, right? And now it's, by the way, I have superpowers, right? Because push comes to shove, Homelander will just come directly for her. What's he going to do against a person that's going to control that kind of power internally? He's not used to that. He doesn't do well with that.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you think about it, her mentor, the person, her like adoptive father figure was Stan Edgar. So whatever he was training her or raising her to be, now that he's kind of sort of out of the picture, because I still don't think he's out of the picture. I just think we
I
don't
agree.
right now. But now she's in a position where, okay, she doesn't have to worry about doing what he wants. She's totally in control of her life now, probably for the first time ever. And on the flip side of what Shetty was doing, this is a person who is presenting herself as non-soup, but we know she is probably one of the more powerful soups out there. So, like what Damien was saying, where does that elevator stop for her? Right now it doesn't. And just like how she got the position of being the running mate for vice president in the first place, because the actual person was killed on Homelander's orders because of that little agreement that they had. But now if she gets into that position, once they are elected, Singer automatically, he'll probably be in position for about a month, maybe. And then, like you said, stroke, heart attack, something may happen. Or she may just pop his head and call it an assassination. And, we don't know what's going to happen, because even though she is a soup, that doesn't necessarily mean that she is looking out for all soups, because you saw in that courtroom, she was popping heads of humans and soups alike. So she very clearly is not the all for one for all for one type mentality. We don't know where she can go. And I think that's going to be interesting when The Boys comes back, because from what I understand, the new season of The Boys is going to piggyback off of the events from this season of Gen V. So I think we still have a lot to learn about Victoria and what her motivations are, but it's a scary prospect. And then now that she knows that there is another like her out there, and she has already put that, that thought in Marie's mind. Oh, yes, you know what? You're not alone. You're more powerful than you thought. Oh, yes, I was the person who helped get you in here. Now she's trying to cultivate a sense of loyalty from Marie, or a sense of, oh, you know what? She gave me this opportunity. Maybe I need to help her. There's no telling. If she gets Marie on board with her through the way that she manipulates people, it's going to be so dangerous. And there's no telling what she can do at that point.
Yep. Bruce?
Well, Vought has this ability to make any number of people into superheroes. So Vought, has this potential insta army that can be used by the president, because there's billions and trillions of dollars now available in black funds that she can direct. So I can see where she can do some surgical type activities. I don't know if any of that could possibly do anything about Homelander, and the possibility that his son has, might become as radical as him. They made it quite clear that the son was okay with what his father did, just cutting down a normal human at that rally at the end of The Boys. We're seeing a lot of things that seem to be heading toward a civil war. So it's good to be the president during a civil war, because you can decide what's going to be the result. But on the other hand, it's also probably the most exposed position that she could possibly be in. So I don't know. I don't know how brave they really. She's been very covert. So I don't know how brave her character really is.
Well, and so she's also very cunning, though, right? And she's got some things she has planned. If you think about how she handled Stan, the man who raised her, right? And has bought herself some trust with Homelander, despite the fact that she is the person that works directly with the Federal Bureau of Superhuman Affairs and is in charge of that, right? So that gives her another piece of access that, traditionally most of the people on the teams haven't had. And the fact that she can still hide the fact that, hey, I'm a suit underneath. No one knows that. That opens up a whole different thing.
It does. It does. There are a lot of moving parts to this universe. I won't even say this show because it really isn't just a single show. That's why
Mhm.
I kind of wanted to bring that up because there are so many things, like you said, it is going to influence things. The show has been picked up for a second season, although I kind of was thrown by the fact that when they had the cast acceptance, I mean, I can kind of see it. They had Golden Boy there. I was like, Luke, what? I guess he's gonna
Flashback scenes.
keep
Well,
Flashbacks, and probably because Sam sees him like that.
yes.
Like Luke is the manifestation of
the
Sam's
angel
conscience.
on his arm. Yeah. So
Can
yeah,
we laugh at the fact that the character is named Golden Boy and that he is the son of Arnold Schwarzenegger? Because that's who's, I'm like, wow, it's like we silver spoon this one all the way through from the beginning. I mean, he does a good job. I'm not taking away from his acting.
privilege
But I'm
is.
like, wait, that's Arnold Schwarzenegger's other son. Oh, wow.
I didn't realize that either, but
Yeah.
it totally makes sense when you play it, since The Boys is often all about subtext.
Mhm.
That just leads into that.
Yeah, I'm the son of Arnold Schwarzenegger playing a character called Golden Boy, the favorite.
Yes, the big man on campus.
Mhm.
So, all right. Well, much as you could clearly see, we could talk about this for much longer. But with that, though, we're going to probably tie things up. So we got to save some stuff for Dragon Con next year. And we'll have more things. I haven't heard a date yet for the next season of The Boys, but I'm sure it probably will drop before next summer.
Let's hope.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see. Remember, because of everything's been kind of super delayed with
Yes.
the writer's strike and the actor's strike, and with everyone finally going back to work tentatively, there's some significant delays that are going on with all
Oh,
of this.
yeah. They're just starting to announce some of those. So,
Right.
but with that in mind, though, let's kind of go through and kind of where people can find you, what's coming up for you all, and we'll go from there. So, Bruce, why don't you go ahead and start?
Well, I'm one of the podcasters on Gaming on the Frontier podcast. So you can find me at Podbean there. We basically drop every week a new episode. We're also on Facebook, primarily is our means of connecting with our fans. Fans of Gaming on the Frontier podcast, also fans of Fringeworthy and Bureau 13 Alien Among Us. So feel free to drop me a line there anytime.
I go.
Okay, so yes, I can be found on the Fandom Hybrid podcast at www.fandomhybrid.com. We also have a YouTube channel at Fandom Hybrid, and you can find us on social media under that handle. Coming up, I will be appearing at Conjuration Con here in Atlanta next weekend. I'll be doing some panels there. It's a magical fantasy type convention, lots of Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, that type of thing. So if you get a chance, just come check us out there.
Damien.
Typically, you can find me over at Instagram under Unidentified Madman. Just know that is completely not safe for work, and it is my creative space and my id space and my totally inappropriate boys-like space.
All right. And of course, you can find the American Science Fiction Media Track on Facebook, of course. Hopefully, if you jump in on Dragon Con's Discord, we are semi-active on there. But I do really encourage everybody to come out and chat. And please come by the track next year. We're probably going to do a few more panels virtually this year, just depending on work life. And we'll see you all next September. Bye, everybody.
Everyone.